So hello to those of you who are just finding us on Facebook now. We are going to give people about another minute or two to find us. This is today's 1 o'clock Eastern Time live cast on Mindful Ohio, the Institute for Creative Mindfulness with Tatiana Tai Chi Cameron. So I'm going to be sharing it to my personal page here, and Tai Chi will be sharing it to her pages as well. So if you're with us, you're in the right place. Just hang out and we'll officially get started here in a few minutes. See that we got a couple people joining us already. Welcome. Let me turn that volume down. So once again, for those of you who are just joining us, we'll give about a little under a minute here before we officially get started. We are just giving some of our friends a chance to find us for today's live cast, which features an expressive artist. That's how we've been using some of our live cast time here during the pandemic, during quarantine, whatever you're calling it at this point, is to feature the work of people who really embody the expressive arts. So I'm very happy that our live cast today is one of those. So I'll officially welcome you now to this afternoon live cast, which is auspiciously on a Monday to celebrate a very special book release. So I'm happy to welcome my friend Tatiana Cameron, better known as Tai Chi in a lot of our circles. So I first knew Tatiana as a fan. She's quite, I consider her a legend in Croatian music. She was a Eurovision contestant in 1990 and just a very well-known Croatian artist, both in secular and spiritual music. And then about 5 years ago, I had the good fortune to connect with Tai Chi more as a colleague in this arena of wellness and health and healing. And we share a lot of common threads there. And I'm just so impressed with the way that she embraces healing and using the arts as a path for healing. So welcome to the live cast, Tai Chi.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So for those of our listeners who may not know much about your journey, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you live right now, what the evolution has been for you?
All right. So I've been a performing artist since I was 4 years old, and that was consciously being a performing artist. I remember the moment when, as a 4-year-old girl, I decided I wanted to tell stories through music and move people's hearts. Because my dad was a singer and he did that for me when he was singing. And I also watched an American musical movie that also did something in me that I wanted to recreate for others. I don't know that, I mean, when I tell that from this point of view, as a mother of 3 sons, I feel that's quite incredible that I had that intention at such early age. Mm-hmm. But I never left it. You know, that intention and that connection and that desire has been following me since then. I guess that's why I remember it so fervently. So, you know, at 19, I became a pop star in Croatia, and I was representing then Yugoslavia at Eurovision Song Contest. I watched the movie, and it's it's not quite like that.
I was going to ask.
Or, you know, at least it wasn't when I was representing Yugoslavia. But it was a big deal. I have to say, it was a big deal. And I just felt honored because, to me, I had a chance to move a lot of hearts. The song that I sang, it became one of the big mega hits. I mean, it actually does have a good storyline, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it says, "Let's go crazy, your lips are like chocolate, and I like that."
Yeah.
It's not very deep, but it does have the verses when it says, "You don't have to be rich or you know, handsome to be my world." Mm-hmm. And so, but the point is that I had this. It was something. What happened then was something bigger. Something bigger that I believe happened to us. It was some sort of connection. And at that point, I had already been through some I didn't know they were traumatic experiences.
Right.
And so this music was already my therapy, even though I was not aware of that. It
Right.
was almost like that superpower that you use to get away from the pain
Sure.
and to
Yeah.
channel everything that you have in order to survive.
Right.
And then after 2 years, I unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunately, but I did not fit into the world of that pop music.
Right.
Not because I love it, but because of the place that I had in it.
Mm-hmm.
I was a very young girl, and didn't know how to set boundaries, didn't know how to really stand up for myself, didn't know how to tell the truth of who I
Yeah.
was inside. So I was made into a doll. I literally have a Tai Chi doll.
Right.
And when the doll spoke to me, I literally held the doll in my hand and I realized that was me. And I did not want to be a doll.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a doll that other people get to play with.
Right.
And so I somehow mustered up the courage to leave literally everything behind and came to America, completely unknown, anonymous, and started over. I studied musical theater at AMDA in New York, and started my spiritual journey. That was the point when I really leaned heavily on something bigger than me that can get me out and protect me.
Yeah.
And that's where my spiritual music journey started. And I spent 15 years traveling around the United States with my late husband. He passed away almost 3 years ago
Right.
from cancer, and our 3 sons. And there was also a point in that journey that I felt, and this is what my book that's released today is talking about, where I realized that the safety of religion became another safe place in which I wasn't addressing the real wound.
Right.
And just about the time that you and I, well, not when I actually started writing this book took me 12 years to release it.
Yeah.
It's wrapped in so much fear.
Yeah.
And right about when I met you, before that, somebody had sent me your TED talk.
Mm.
And I can't tell you how much I was happy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. She's speaking exactly what I needed.
Mm.
Um, my I was in therapy already, and my kids asked me, Mama, why do you go to therapy? Because I was very open about it.
Right.
And I said, well, when you break a bone, you go to a doctor to set it. When you break your heart or your heart gets broken, that's how I was explaining it to my 3 and 5-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go to a specialist who can help you put the heart together. And I said, the bone will heal itself,
Right.
but it might get set wrong.
Yeah.
And so with the therapist, you get your wounds healed. So now I live in Nashville, and I am. It's interesting that I see this book. I was talking to my now almost 20-year-old son.
Yeah.
How this book is, and it might sound preposterous, but this book is kind of like my coming out.
Sure. It is. I love that. I love that. I have chills for you as you said that. I had the great honor and pleasure of endorsing Unbroken. I got to read an advanced copy of it. Will you hold it up for us
Yes,
so that
yes,
those
yes.
who are watching could see this wonderful new project? So Unbroken, songs my father taught me. There's so much I want to ask you about it because it's a beautiful expressive arts journey, but let's start with the title, Unbroken, and how you have it stylized
Yeah.
like that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. First, so this book started with the album that I recorded in 2008, right after my dad passed away. And when I mean, I had all kinds of hard time. I booked a studio. I didn't have anything to record. I needed the album. I needed new material for my church concerts.
Mm-hmm.
And I had nothing. I had nothing. And I went to the producer and I said, "Can I back out?" And he said, "No, you can come and dance in the studio. You can come and have lunch every day, but you can't
Right.
back out. You have to
Mm-hmm.
pay." And that got me into the dead end where I was like, okay, I gotta think of something. And I started moving furniture. I have a very good friend who is who I talk about, like how, you know, in times of purging, in times of great transformation, we
Right.
often move furniture around, you know,
Yeah.
and organize bookshelves. In the moving of the furniture, I found my dad's songbook,
Oh, wow.
and it screamed at me, "This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna
Mm.
record these songs." And the songs that my dad taught me were not fitting for church audience. But you know, there's standards, and I thought, okay, I'll
Right.
do them. When we finished the album, I hated it.
Mm.
I hated everything about it. I
Mm.
couldn't stand. I thought it was awful. I thought my voice was bad. I thought the arrangements were too harsh. And then for several years, I tried to. So that's why the book is called, first was called Broken, because this is a
Mm.
broken album. This is
Mm.
ugly. But as the book shows the process of how it goes from broken to unbroken, from
Mm-hmm.
ugly to beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
when we finally embrace that the ugliness is not ugliness, it's fear,
Yeah.
it's wounds, it's
Right.
brokenness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, you know, I put it in parentheses, because you know, life is, and I heard you say in your one of your interviews lately, and by the way, congratulations on your book. I can't
Oh,
wait to
thank you.
read it. Yes. You said we're, you know, life is constantly happening, and
Yeah.
we heal the wounds, but unless we're sitting on a couch and doing nothing,
Right.
we do get, you know, hurt.
Mm-hmm. And so much of what,
Right.
right, yes. And so much of what my spiritual journey has taught me, which is why the title of your book spoke to me, is that, you know, underneath all of the wounds we deal with as human beings, on a spiritual level, we're already whole.
Yes.
And I think so much of what wounding is a disconnection from that source, a disconnection from that knowing that we are already eternal and whole. A friend of mine shared the words with me the other day: good, holy, and blessed. Like that's who we are at our core. And I think it's important to keep sight of that as we heal these things in our human experience, but to know that embracing our humanity is the way we get deeper into that spiritual core. Because I relate to so much of your journey that, you know, I got involved in religious music for a while and religion, and I still consider myself a religious person, but more on the spiritual end, because I noticed that when I would do things more just to go through the motions and negate my humanity in the process, not heal the wounds, I ended up feeling still stuck. And so I think so much of what my spiritual path has really been is embracing those wounds as, I just so love how you said that. It's fear. It's fear.
Yeah.
And when we can accept the challenge of healing them and giving us ourselves compassion that we are human, I think it takes us more swiftly to that core that we're whole already.
Yes. And actually, I dedicated this book to my sister
Sonia,
Tanya, and
yeah.
our half sister.
Oh,
And you know, there's no such thing as half sister. She's not half. She's a
right.
whole. So
Yeah,
even in that, you know, our language is full of these ways to make us believe that we're not whole.
yeah,
And I know you love language.
yes.
You know, and being bilingual, I guess we see a lot of these things when it pops up. Like, why do we say this?
Right.
So it's But when I was in therapy years ago, one of the first things that helped me was my therapist gave me this image of the soul of your being is on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think of it as ocean, and the bottom is where your being is, your awareness, your soul, and everything. The storms happen on the surface, but in the bottom, your breath is steady and calm, and and so all these wounds, right, are more on these. I don't want to, by saying surface levels, I don't want to make it less.
Right. But what you're saying resonates a lot actually with yoga philosophy, which is that we show up as the waves, that who we really are is the ocean. We can never not be the ocean. We can never not be those depths. And life will happen to churn up these waves that we may show up as. And we may think this wave is certainly going to engulf me, but a wave can never not be the ocean. And so I love that your therapist brought that up with you. And when she did, as soon as I bring my awareness at that place where I'm whole, I'm always whole, no matter what happened, I'm whole. I watched my husband pass away. Yeah. His body was breaking apart. He was in so much physical pain, in so much emotional pain. But in all of that, he always remained whole, right? Even as he was passing. Right. And that, just when we're able to keep that in mind, then I believe we can face the fear, we can face the brokenness, we can face the storms and anything that happens to us, because it does. Life sucks. Yes, let's be plain about it. Yeah.
So much stuff happens all the time.
Right.
My 13-year-old, well, not 13, I lose numbers. He's just turned 15. He said the other day, Mama, it's every time I get a grasp on something else new happens emotionally, because we talk about it all the time.
Right. How lovely, and how lovely to impart that wisdom in your teaching and in the book. So the book itself contains, there's a CD that goes along with it, which is the recording that you once dreaded.
Yes.
So how do you feel about it now when you listen to the music?
Well, and I explain it in the book. I don't want to give away the book, because the book is it's pretty. It's kind of like it's one of those that you read. It has a lot of white space, so it kind of invites you to journey along.
Yes.
But when, of course, now that I listen to it, it is precious. It is like listening to or watching, seeing a picture that your child drew when they were 3, and now they're an amazing artist. It's that kind of like, oh, there's so much beauty in it. There's nothing shameful or embarrassed, and he's of course embarrassed about it, if mom shows it. Oh, by the way, the cover was designed by my son Dante.
Oh,
yeah,
lovely.
He designed the butterfly and the cocoons.
He's a beautiful visual artist.
And he used this tree of hearts. Is something that I've been doodling forever. And whenever I sent him packages to college, and even when I would put little notes in his lunch boxes when he was in kindergarten, I would always put a little doodle like this. And so he incorporated that without me knowing. Oh, isn't that wonderful?
That's just amazing. So for those listeners who are not aware, so much of what I do as a clinical trainer and what we do as an organization is what's called expressive arts and expressive arts therapy. And the gift of expressive arts is when we could look at different modes of art together. And, Tai Chi does that in a lot of her work, but especially this project where there's that beautiful visual connection, there's the storytelling connection. And thank you for mentioning that about the blank space, that it's more of a meditative book. It's not something you read like a novel, but it's an invitation in. And then, of course, the music. So I just believe that's a beautiful testament to the power of expressive arts. And we could look at all of these modalities together. And the other thing we talk about with expressive arts, and I'm interested to get your take on this, because obviously you are a professional musician, you're highly trained. I've been on sets with you, and I've been at concerts, and I mean, you have a high quality as an artist. But I think a lot of people, that's a barrier for them, because they say, well, I'll never be good like the woman I see on stage. I'll never be finely trained like that. And so people end up not expressing. And so it's very good for me to hear you share that story, that even with your high level of training, you heard this and still had fear around it. Because I think that's what a lot of people end up experiencing when it comes to art. So what would you say to somebody who wants to create, who has a passion for creating, but they have that barrier that I'm just not good enough?
Well, you know what I always say is, look at any other place in your life that you're being creative. You know, we all, I don't know, maybe you cook, maybe you put bring the flowers back home and arrange them differently. You know, I always like to point out the smaller, more confident ways we create and we express creatively, so that that gives us confidence to then, okay, I can then sing too. I can write a rhyme, because I think we need to give ourselves permission to be creative. Not give, first of all, like you said, embrace that we're all creatives.
Right.
I mean, I think every human we're born creative with creativity.
For sure.
Right.
Sure.
And I mean, I will tell you, it took me many years to get liberated from the very strict training that I received at the conservatory in Croatia, because I was classically trained pianist. And, you know, that's like, there's, unless you perfect your technique, we don't talk about creativity.
Right.
You know, I was thrown out of the class because I was creative. I was too creative. I was too expressive.
I could see that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so, but you know, I love what you do. There's so much encouraging stuff out there for people to be creative.
Yes, beautiful.
Even have a, go ahead.
Oh, just real quick, I want to say, for those friends who are watching, if you have a question for Tai Chi, please go ahead and type it in the comments, and I'll be happy to interweave it here into the last moments of our broadcast. We had a friend say, I never thought of my cooking as creating, but that's a great way to look at it. Thank you for that. Yep. So again, if you have a question or a comment, please go ahead and type it in. Tai Chi, you were saying.
Yes. So with the book, like I said, you know, I have these little hearts. So what I do is I just start adding hearts on a piece of paper, and that just opens up a whole, you know, I use it as meditation, and actually have a worksheet that comes with the book that, you know, gives you little prompts to, you know, with the butterflies and the hearts. Because, so I have, all three of my sons are artists. Two of them are visual artists, and they belong to a lot of groups. All they need is a prompt. So all you need is a prompt.
Yeah.
And be open to receive those prompts. You know, maybe you don't need to belong to a group, but maybe a prompt is, oh, I feel the sadness. The sadness is a prompt for you to just, I don't know, you know, dance. You and I, when you were on my show, we talked about dance.
Yes. Yes. And I just have to go with the flow of what's coming up, because I adore what you're saying about a prompt, that it could just be someplace you start. Because a line we say in a lot of therapies I teach is start by starting. That the barrier so many people have to even getting the flow going is getting over that. So I really like what you're saying about a prompt. And since we spent the beginning part of the live cast talking about your Eurovision song, show us the famous bit of choreography in that.
Hajde da ludujemo ove noći, hajde da ljubi se u moje oči, tvoje su usne kao čokolada, to mi se dopada. There you
So what
go.
I'm saying there to anybody is, if you have any kind of movement you like from a pop song, start with that and then just let it flow from there. Because I know, even as a very free form dancer, sometimes when I get stuck, I'll come back to a movement or a gesture that I know and trust very well. And then I could use that as kind of like a home base and then keep going from there. So I just love what you're saying about a prompt, because I think not only can it be the thing that gets us started, but if we do feel stuck, we could come back to doodling that heart and then seeing wherever we go from there. So I think that's just a beautiful expressive arts idea.
I love that. I love that. And I wanted to ask you about
Sure.
the fear,
Mm.
because that is a huge block. And I
Oh
know
yeah.
for me, and this book is, like I said, it's kind of like coming out for me. And, when I say coming out, is like we have these truths inside that we're
Yeah,
just so afraid to express
for
about who
sure.
we are.
For sure.
And when we have done it in the past, we have been reprimanded, we have been sent out, you know, yelled at, um, punished, and so of course we develop fear of expressing the truth of being who
Yeah.
we are,
Yeah.
and just adds on. And for me, one of the, I mean, I talk about being afraid to sing a song.
Mm.
I was afraid. I was so afraid to sing a song, a particular song, because it was bad.
Yeah.
I was afraid to share that I loved a certain author because it
Yeah.
was a bad thing. And imagine how much, I mean, this is, you know, okay, so this is an area of creativity, of arts expression,
Right.
but it's also part of the truth
Right.
of your truth.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, tell me.
Oh, where do I begin? Where do I begin? I mean, fear, I think fear is the biggest paralyzing force just in all of humanity, period. I mean, it's what keeps so many people stuck, either interpersonally. And I think when we're looking at what problems are that plague us in the world, so much of it comes down to fear of the other, fear of things being different, fear of what we can't control. And it's for a good reason, because at our body, at that very visceral level, when we're afraid, it can kick us into that, what we call like a fight, a flight, or a freeze. And I think freeze is how I see it affect people like us most prominently. That it can be a fear to create, a fear to express. And I want to be very careful when I say I never try to bash on religion when I talk, because I do have a lot of gratitude for what religion and spirituality has given to me. But I think sometimes when we grow up in certain spiritual or faith communities, we get this messaging like, well, this is bad to like this thing, or this is not becoming to like this thing. And we can get very, very afraid to speak. And that's not good, because that's how walls get built. And a big theme of my new book is that we have to learn how to build bridges and not walls, if we're going to actually solve either what's wrong in the world or solve what's wrong with us. And I mean, I can't pretend to know what will solve world conflict, but I do know what has worked for me, and that is really embracing faith, genuine faith, as a way to combat fear. For your fans who are watching that don't know, I'm a person who's in recovery. I'm 18 years sober from drugs and alcohol. I actually got sober when I was living in Medjugorje, living in in the Croatian Herzegovina, and yeah, I had to learn there that in order to get my life on track, I had to embrace faith. And that's refined itself over the years, because at first it was very much a religious faith, and then it ended up becoming into more of what we were talking about earlier, that faith in knowing who I really am, which is of God, which is of the divine, as far as I believe. But a big part of that is knowing that, the God of my understanding put me here as that God's unique expression. And God shows up in so many different ways, is what I've really learned. And even the ways that we show up over time may change and evolve, but that's okay too. And I think that the most radical thing any of us can do is be our authentic self. And I know for me, the big fear has been fear of losing people I love,
Yeah.
fear of losing certain family members, fear of losing, I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but I know that has been in my own therapy, something I've really had to tackle. But also know that if I keep stuff down, that's not going to be good for me either, because the longer I've done this work as a trauma therapist, as a grief worker, all of this, I believe it's not who we are that causes us problems. It's not what we feel that causes us problems. It's everything we do to keep it shoved away that makes us sick inside, that makes us behave in ways that aren't good to our fellow humankind. So that's, I mean, again, there's so much I can say on it, but that's the summary of it.
Yes, thank you. And in that process, we develop compassion for ourselves and then for our fellow humans. And that's why I see that that's the only way to build bridges.
Yes.
Is to first really look at yourself and have courage to address that fear and walk with that fear. You know, I know even today before this interview, you know, I've been receiving it. I got emails of saying, sorry, you lost me here. You know, I'm out of here. Yeah. Because this doesn't fit into the work that people know me for. But we have to grow. We have to have the freedom to change, to expand, right? And not to please your group of people that you feel you can't live without, but to really be able to be better for the humanity, to serve those who don't think and look like us.
Right. And I'm so proud of you for doing that. And I think that's one of the reasons we connect on a friendship level too, is having had that experience several times in our lives of realizing that you grow out of certain molds, and that's okay. I mean, to me, that's the sign of a healthy person. So we got a couple comments to share. One is from Des Stevens, a mentor of yours who I've become friends with too. And she said, Tai Chi is such a gift in this world. I'm so grateful for her presence and her new book. And this is from Marty. Besides fear, I think self-esteem or self-confidence is another roadblock for some. And then congratulations offered to both of us. And then Des also says, love heals. Yep. So let's talk about love, because look at your shirt. Yeah.
Yes.
So love, you know, it's one of these words that can get so loaded, and it can mean so many different things to so many people. What does love mean to you, Tai Chi?
It's the well, love is the force that brings everything to life. Love is the energy of peace, the energy of deep commitment, contentment, a deep purpose. That's what it is. It's also behavior. It's also choice. You know, I every morning, I mean, every morning I do my meditation, and my intention for the day is, today all I want to do is to do my best to serve love, and to do everything out of love, and to be aware when fear shows up.
Right.
And you know, I speak a lot on fear, and I write a lot about fear, because that's like, I guess I've been journeying with fear. Yeah. You know, when my husband got sick and diagnosed, that's a huge, the fear just becomes the passenger, not the passenger, becomes the suvozach, what do you call it, like a, you know, person that's
constant companion, always there.
Companion. Yeah. And you literally, I learned in my life to say, okay, fear, you walk with me today.
Yeah.
You know, arm in arm. But I don't want to make decisions and act from the place of fear.
Very well put. Yeah, to embrace whatever is, because as you know, I teach on mindfulness, and a lot of people think of mindfulness as a relaxation technique. It can be, but that's not the real meaning of it. That part of what mindfulness is being present with whatever is. And that could be being present with the joy and the peace and the relaxation of the moment, or it can be being present with the fear. And as you said, like say, hey, walk with me. I'm not going to try to push you away. I'm going to feel it through. But part of, I think what the spiritual journey can give us is the sense of I'm not my fear. That fear doesn't define me. It's not the thing that's driving the car. My true self is driving the car. Yet I think part of it is to be able to listen to and honor the presence of what that fear is telling us and feel it anyway. I mean, that's how we grow in health, because trying to push it away, as you and I both know, ignore it, cut it off, that's not a help either.
Yes, use any kind of distraction or numbing tool. To which, for me, see, I also had the experience where the music was my distraction, was my fairy tale, my Disney fairy tale, in which I would just jump like Mary Poppins, you know, into her picture, and everything was beautiful. And I don't know what you call that in a world of therapy, you know, psychology. I don't know if that's dissociation or
well, yeah, I mean, and it's so funny you mentioned that, because it could be dissociative. And something I talk a lot about in my teaching is how sometimes the very same thing, music, can be used as either like adaptive dissociation or maladaptive dissociation, where we use it to escape versus using it to really embrace. And I think both of us have had experiences with doing it, you know, both ways, but realizing, you know, now that we know the difference, to be able to distinguish. So very, very, very good example. So we have a comment here from one of my friends, Jonathan. Love to me is full acceptance of who I am in my hula hoop and having a daily practice of self-care, knowing that joy comes from a higher spiritual place and being able to exude that outward to others. So thank you, Jonathan, for sharing that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, love, 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 love. So
this is actually Love Heals from Thistle Farms. I love that place here in Cincinnati that restores lives of women who were caught in sex trafficking and abuse and addiction. And there, actually, I don't know that I mean, when I moved to Nashville, I visited them and I experienced such real transformation, real love, real forgiveness, real compassion. Everything that I, you know, read in my spiritual readings before was alive and real and present in that room while I was holding hands with the women there. So
love made manifest. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
I adore it. So Tai Chi, tell people where they can find you, either connect with you online in general or to get a copy of the book. Yes,
so it's on Amazon. It's a little hard to find because there's a lot of unbroken things,
right?
But titles. But if you use the parentheses, then it will pop up. Unbroken. Is it backwards?
Nope. Nope. I'm seeing it good.
No? Yep. Oh, okay. Okay, good. It's also on TatianaCameron.com, WakingUpRevolution.com. I have several websites, and here, of course, on Facebook.
Right.
I do have a few specials running. But and I have hardcover, paperback, ebook. It's going to be available on Audible as well in a few weeks. And I failed to mention before that I am also a life coach. I was trained and certified at Radiant Coaches Academy. And so, you know, that's how because we've been talking, and I am expressive artist, performing artist. That's my primary expression of myself. But as a coach, you know, I kind of love to combine the arts and music and storytelling and offer support to others as well to work through these transitions, because it's not easy. And I certainly would have not been where I am today as, you know, as a woman, as a mother to my children, as a friend, if I didn't have people, coaches, mentors, therapists, authors, artists, spiritual directors and guides who shared very openly and vulnerable with me. Yeah. So I want to encourage everybody to, you know, to take that journey inwards, because I find it the most joyous, the most purposeful thing in life that really like awakes me, makes me feel like, yes, is when I realized that whatever I can learn on my journey and share it with others is what makes it the best, makes it beautiful.
I resonate so much.
Yeah. It makes it unbroken too.
Yes, I resonate so much, and thank you for sharing your journey with us over the years and in this this latest love made manifest that you're giving us in the world with Unbroken. So, and thank you, Tai Chi, for shouting out my TEDx talk. For any of Tai Chi's folks who are watching, you can check that out on traumamadesimple.com. Like Tai Chi, I have a lot of websites, but that's the easiest way to connect with me, to watch a lot of these videos, and you can get information about my books there. Paula, thank you so much for joining me today here on Facebook Live. Until we meet again.
Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you.